Hello, hello, fam. Happy Monday. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Bro. Gotta hit the flex as we start another Monday Masterclass. Oh, y'all, tonight we are talking about hunger. Woo! Hunger hacks. All the things. Wow, y'all, I have a absolutely packed masterclass for you tonight. So I am going to dive right in because the more and more I thought about this, the more things I wrote down that I wanted to make sure I include on this very long list of hacks, things you can do to help manage your hunger when you are trying to lose body fat, particularly when you're trying to lose body fat. But because things are a little different when you are focused on gains, when you are focused on a reverse diet or a maintenance phase or a building phase. We don't want a lot of excessive hunger when we are really not supposed to be in a caloric deficit. But we're talking about in times where you are in a caloric deficit to drive body fat loss in a cut, as we call it in the bodybuilding world. Tonight, I'm going to share all my pro tips with you for how to manage your hunger in a fat loss phase or a cut. So, what is up, ladies? We got some ladies on with us live tonight. Of course, Karen's here. Elizabeth is with us. Andrea's on tonight. Mary Grace says my hair looks good. Thank you so much. It's a fresh, clean hair day and a rest day. So I did legs yesterday. And so I was able to actually have clean hair on a Monday, which is rare, let me tell you. Usually Mondays are my leg days, and I am running back in here just in time for the masterclass after training and or eating. So speaking of food and hunger, I was super hungry all day today. And so I moved everything, all of my macros earlier into the day, which is really something I've been wanting to do lately anyway, because I always feel my best when I have a good 4 hours before bed, finishing my last meal. And then a full 4 hours after that last meal, before my head hits that pillow, I feel the best. And that is one of the things I'll talk about tonight, which is embracing hunger and how whenever I am in a contest prep cut and I'm going to sleep with my head hitting the pillow, feeling a little bit hungry. That is my goal. That is one of the things that I look for, a telltale sign in my cuts that tells me I am moving in the right direction. And I have gotten through any of those first few hours of digestion so I can sleep better and my body is not trying to digest food, and also I'm asking it to go to sleep. So my sleep is generally better. I just feel better overall. I have less indigestion, anything like that, bloat, any kind of stomach issues. If I have a full 3 to 4 hours, as Mary Grace says, same for her, before bed. So I myself have employed today many of the things that I'll be talking about tonight because my hunger was higher than usual. And many of you ladies may find that at particular times of your cycle, and it varies by woman, so there's not, I did a masterclass maybe a month ago on cycle syncing because I wanted to share my thoughts, because there are protocols and books being written on how to cycle sync and the right way to cycle sync for your cycle. But those of you who are here for that masterclass know I like to do things much more intuitively. I don't like to follow protocols or books and a particular way of doing things that somebody says is best for everyone or for most people, because the truth is, especially when it comes to us ladies, it is highly, highly individual. So I say that certain times of your cycle, you may feel more hungry. And for some women, this happens the week prior to their period. Some women, it starts with their period. Some women, it's around ovulation. So it may be different for you at different times of your cycle. And so if you don't know, where you are in your cycle because you're in perimenopause or postmenopause, or you had a hysterectomy or a partial hysterectomy, or you have irregular periods, you don't have to be trying to figure out how to do everything according to your cycle, and probably shouldn't. Just become more intuitive with what's going on with you. And all that to say, one of the things among a few that have prompted this masterclass this week, as usual, were some of our members in the Academy and their check-ins and my feedback to them in the last week. And that was around hunger, questions around hunger and how to manage hunger. And one of those questions was about, a woman in perimenopause, close to menopausal, and not getting her cycle very frequently, ask a question about, oh, my cycle surprised me after X number of months. Now I know why I was so hungry. Is there a way that I can figure out how and when I'm going to be hungry so I can get ahead of it? Or when I'm hungry according to my cycle, what can I do for this hunger? Should I feed it or should I fight through it? And my answer to her and what prompted this topic was, if you are in a fat loss phase, it does not matter what is driving the hunger, if it's hormonal or otherwise. If you are hungry in a fat loss phase, in a deficit, that is to be expected. And yes, the hard answer, tough love answer is, if you want fat loss, yes, you're going to need to fight through it. So I'm going to help you fight through it tonight with all of my hacks and my tips. That's what this masterclass is all about, how to manage and basically fight through and work through the hunger while you're in that deficit. So let's dive right in, shall we? All right, so first things first. As I just said, I'm going to be talking through first the pro tips for managing hunger mentally, the mental things you can do to improve, focus on your mindset, focus on the right things, help yourself manage hunger with your mind. And then after that, we're going to get into all of the physiological hunger hacks that you can do to help reduce your hunger, to help manage through your hunger on the practical side of things, like the practical steps and applications and action steps you can take physically to help improve your hunger response. So first things first, let's just get one thing clear. If you are not tracking your nutrition, start. I have to say the things here that I know I'm preaching to the choir, because in the group, a lot of y'all know this stuff already. A lot of y'all know the basics, but I have to remember that I'm putting these out now publicly on YouTube, so it's very possible I'll have some newbies around here who are not familiar with my content and who are not already handling the basics. So we always got to talk about the basics first. All right, so first things first, if you're not already tracking your nutrition, please start. Please start. Please suspend all of your excuses and justifications as to why you don't want to track your nutrition. You will never properly be able to assess really anything if you're not tracking. But particularly questions I see in communities where tracking is not the norm, right? In random keto carnivore discussion boards and groups, I see a lot of, if you're hungry, eat more fat, eat butter bites, eat this, eat that. If you're hungry, you should never be hungry. There's this concept in the keto and carnivore space that on keto and carnivore, hunger should not be a thing. And it's this magical diet because your hunger will be gone. And then I have friends and clients in this community who are so frustrated because they see other people getting results and never being hungry. And they're like, I never had that magical lack of hunger happen. on my keto carnivore journey. I could just eat and eat till the cows come home. So for those people, let me just validate the fact that it's not magic. It's not going to just magically take away hunger forever. There may be some of that effect that will happen with some people when they change from a higher carb standard American diet to a keto or carnivore diet, but that doesn't happen for everyone. So if that's you, then you're still normal. There's nothing wrong with you. And many times that advice being given to people to always eat more and never be hungry when they are trying to lose fat is actually, while well-meaning, misguided advice. So I love it. Ash says, I came from that type of group, and that's why I was a little confused about hunger. Yes, and that's what prompted the class, was this concept of, well, if I'm hungry around my cycle, right? Because that's another thing we're seeing in these cycle syncing, books and protocols and things that people are putting out now, is that around your cycle, when you're getting ready to have your bleed, your menstrual phase, you're going to get really hungry, and you need to lean into that because your body's asking you to eat. And I've said this before, I said it on the cycle syncing masterclass. Yeah, your body's asking you to eat for a reason. It's asking you to put on body fat to protect the baby, because before your lining sheds, your body is preparing to prepare itself to have a baby. So it is telling you to eat all the things, because then you can insulate your feminine organs and protect the baby. So if you lean into those signals because it's that time of your cycle, oh, my body just must want me to eat. Your body wants you to put on body fat. That's what's happening there. So if you're extra hungry around that time, recognize it is because you are depriving your body of fuel, which is part of the process of losing body fat. And that is why you're hungry. And it doesn't matter what time of your cycle it is. The hunger may be more pronounced around that time. And understanding that could help you prepare and know where it's coming from when that does happen. And that can be very comforting to know that, oh, I know why I'm hungrier right now. But it does not mean that I need to feed myself more. I always like to point that part out, that because it's always being told to us not to go against that signal from our body to eat during that time of cycle. But that's fine if you are focused on gains. That's fine if you're in a maintenance phase. Sure, eat a little bit more at that time of the cycle. But if you are focused on fat loss, and I can tell you from personal experience, year in and year out, doing a cut and a build and a cut and a build, whenever I eat more during my cycle, when I'm hungrier, I either don't lose or I gain. And whenever I fight the hunger and I use some of these pro tips I'm going to share with you tonight, I still get that fat loss progress when that is my goal, or I maintain it if I'm trying to maintain. So just had to start with that. So if you are not tracking, you are not going to be able to properly assess whether the hunger you're feeling is a problem that needs to be fixed by eating more food, which is what you're being told in these groups. You're not going to know if it's a problem that needs to be fixed if you don't know how much you're eating relative to how much your body actually needs for your goals, whether that goal be fat loss, maintenance, or gains. So tracking will help you understand, am I in too much of a deficit? Am I eating too little? Do I actually need to eat more? Or am I in an appropriate deficit and this is a necessary evil of fat loss and I can handle this and I'll be okay? Because another tip I'm going to share in a bit is that under eating beyond a healthy deficit will drive your hunger way up, and it can lead to other things like malnourishment. So I always say the very first thing I have to share is don't excessively cut. The extended fasts and the 1 meal a day and the PSMF and the alternate day fasting is screwing you up. It's screwing your body up and is going to make it more and more difficult for you to lose body fat every single time you try. So do not try to go faster. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see women making. Dropping their food intake, their calorie intake way too low, way too soon. And then they either derail because they're starving themselves, or they drive their metabolism down. They downregulate, and their body adapts to that lower level of food. And even worse, if you're doing the feasting and fasting, the alternate day or the OMAD, when you do eat, your body is expecting a huge bolus of food. So that's why when you do finally eat, you can't stop eating, because you have trained your body into that pattern of starve and then binge. So almost every video, I have to share something saying not to do these extremes. It is not a good idea for you. So, all right. With that being said, let's dive into the pro tips for managing hunger mentally first. All right. Shout out to Mary, who we converted on this side of the world. She said, I did not start to track until I started with Natalie last year. Best thing ever. Mary, you're amazing. You've been doing amazing. She learned so much. Everybody does. As soon as you start tracking, those of you who really can't afford to work with a coach or even join a program or any of that, right? The best thing you can do for yourself that's free is start tracking your food. It is free, and you will get so much insight into your eating habits, your patterns, understanding how much is too much and how much is not enough, and all those things. Just from tracking and looking at your own trends, you'll be able to glean a lot from that information. So that's what I encourage everybody to do as a first step. All right, so first thing on the mental side of things, do not expect to avoid hunger entirely in a cut. It is part of the process, and it is a sign that your body is having to eat its own fat, take its own fat out of your fat stores and use it for fuel, because you're not giving it fuel. So become one with the hunger. I say that tongue in cheek, but truly, if you can shift your mentality to learn to love the feeling of hunger, train your brain to expect it and to see it as a win, that I must be moving in the right direction if I'm hungrier. This is a beautiful thing. When you can do that, you're not fearing the hunger. I've seen that a lot. Ladies coming into the academy or private coaching saying, I'm so afraid of this cut. I'm afraid of being hungry. Oh my God, this is so scary. What are you afraid of? What's the worst that can happen? You feel uncomfortable. You feel hungry, and then eventually you eat again. Becky shared something that I said in the group that I completely forgot that I said, and I'm so glad she brought it up. I said, I'm definitely saying that again on tonight's class. No one ever starved between breakfast and lunch. No one ever starved to death between lunch and dinner, or between breakfast and dinner, or between dinner and breakfast. You're not going to starve between two meals. You can last 1 more hour, 2 more hours, 3 more hours. And what you will find on an animal-based, low-carb, ketogenic, or carnivore diet is that you will be surprised how much longer you can actually go without eating, without experiencing the scary, truly scary side effects that you would feel if you were a carb burner. So those of you struggling to get adapted to keto and carnivore, or coming off of a carb binge and adapting again, lean on and get excited about that adaptation and what you can look forward to on the other side of that adaptation. Knowing that when carbs are in your system and you are burning sugar as your primary fuel source, you're going to have these highs and lows. Those blood sugar drops are scary. You can get lightheaded. You could pass out. I have actually passed out at a friend's wedding so many years ago. First time in my life and only time in my life that ever happened. And that was early on in my journey. I was not keto yet, or definitely not carnivore yet. I was eating healthier then, but I actually passed out from a blood sugar drop after a spike. So those are the kinds of actual scary things that we would be afraid of if we were living as a carb burner. But when you adapt to burning fats for fuel, they are the logs on the fire. They will last you a lot longer. And especially when you're eating higher protein, ladies, which we're going to get to in a moment. But you do not have to fear hunger. It is a part of the human condition. And until modern times, it was something that our ancestors just dealt with. It was a part of life. They did not have food at the ready all the time as we do. So you can also use that as something to calm the fears if you are afraid of being hungry or very uncomfortable with the feeling of being hungry. Remind yourself that, hey, the fridge is right there. If I feel like I'm starving to death, I can get up and I can eat. But I'm not going to die. So, also, I will say that hunger is also a good sign, not just in a fat loss phase, but in a reverse diet. When you are in a reverse dieting phase, hunger tells us that your metabolism is firing, that it is working, that it is improving, because the goal is not to never be hungry. If we're never hungry, it means our body can sustain itself, maintain exactly where it is with very little calories, very little food intake. We don't want to be able to survive on very little. If we are surviving on very little, then for one, it's unlikely that we're getting all the nutrients that we actually need to function optimally. And two, our body has down-regulated a lot of its systems to support this lower level of nutrition. So not being hungry is not the goal. I see that all the time, this like goal of not being hungry and not wanting to be hungry. I hear this is probably the number one thing that new clients come to me. They're afraid to eat breakfast because, tell me if this sounds familiar to you. If I eat breakfast, then I'll be hungry all day. It's like the floodgates open and then I can't stop eating all day. How many of you have ever said that before or experienced that before? Afraid of eating breakfast? Because then your hunger is so much higher all day. I always have to teach my new clients that this is actually a good sign. When they're not eating breakfast, they're skipping breakfast, they're waiting until afternoon to eat that first meal, they're fasting extensively, they're teaching their body to live on less, and the metabolism downregulates to meet that need. That is why you might be gaining weight even though you're eating very little. It's because every time you eat just a little bit more than that little you're used to, your body starts storing it because you're living at a lower level of where you're living at a metabolic rate, or your metabolism is functioning essentially not optimally. It's shutting down systems. This is why women lose their period and all kinds of other hell breaks loose when we're malnourished. So, all that to say, if you're afraid of eating breakfast, think about it like this. We actually should be hungry during the day because our bodies need energy to function during the day when the sun is out, when it's light out, our circadian rhythm. So a lot of these same ladies who say, oh, the floodgates will open if I eat too early in the day are the same ones who are starving and ravenous and binging at night. And you are setting yourself up for disaster because you're living opposite of your circadian rhythm. You're teaching your body to eat at night when we no longer need energy because the day is winding down. Then you're getting poor sleep. Then you're waking up and you're waiting to eat that first meal. You're teaching your body to live at a dysregulated cortisol pattern. And if those of you, I'm sure you've heard the buzzword cortisol, we do not want dysregulated cortisol as women, particularly women in 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, peri and postmenopause, when our adrenals take over for our ovaries. We need to support our adrenal health, and we're not going to be able to do that when we have dysregulated cortisol rhythms. So teach yourself to eat early. Teach yourself to eat breakfast and then to eat lunch and then to eat a nice early dinner so you're not ravenous and binging at night. And your body will be so much happier with you. Not to mention the fact that getting that first bolus of protein in by 10 a.m. will do wonders for your muscle gains. And that will do wonders for your fat loss over time and eventually make it effortless for you to live in your ideal body. Fit, toned, lean. So, Ashley says, what about TMAT? 2 meals a day is fine. 2 meals a day is fine. Doesn't have to be 3. It's whatever works for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about meal timing and meal frequency a little later as one of my tips. So stay tuned for that. All right. Next up on the mental side of things, get to know your hunger signals. And fullness and satiety signals at that. And here's a simple way you can do it. This is straight out of Intuitive Eating, the book, the original book of Intuitive Eating. Practice rating your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10. And even better, describe the feeling. Make yourself a little chart. Put 1 on one side and 10 on the other, and put a 5 in the middle, and describe what the extremes feel like. Absolutely stuffed, full, not even thinking about food, not hungry, all the way to going to eat my arm if I don't get something in my stomach right now, starving. And then write down what 5 feels like, and then write down 3 and 7, or, basically give yourself some real clear, specific, descriptive language about the numbers. And then learn to distinguish stomach hunger from head hunger. So, physiological signs of stomach hunger might include grumbling or growling, that empty pit in your stomach feeling, churning. You may even salivate at the thought of food. It's a physiological response. So learn to identify those physical sensations in your body when you feel hungry. Stomach hunger. This is also when typically undesirable foods sound good to you. So a lot of people doing this sardine fast now are doing it because they're not going to overeat sardines because they're not that enjoyable. They're quite unenjoyable to most people. So you could think about, you don't actually have to do sardines to do this practice. You could just say, could I eat a tin of sardines right now, right out of the can? For me, it would be, could I eat tuna out of the can? I would eat sardines out of the can before I'd eat tuna out of the can. I got to mix my tuna with some mayo, some avocado, some olive oil, something. I can't just eat the dry tuna. So the dry tuna test, the sardine test, or another one I like to say is the cold, dry grilled chicken breast. Would you eat cold, dry chicken breast? So do that test. If it's a no, you're not really hungry. It's not stomach hunger. Now, head hunger can be mental or emotional. So a lot of the time, our head hunger comes from being sleepy, tired, groggy, that brain fog, difficulty concentrating or focusing on a task. So it's not necessarily, that's more of like a mental, not an emotional hunger, but that head hunger, that like, because your body is searching for energy. So it only makes sense that you would get the sensation of hunger when you're tired. But there are other things we can do to combat the tiredness without putting caloric value foods into our mouths. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the emotional side, you might have feelings of stress or overwhelm, maybe with a task or a project that you're working on, or something at work, or something with the family, something stressing you or overwhelming you. Of course, other heightened emotions like anger or sadness or loneliness or despair. In this case, what you're actually seeking is a change of state, a physiological change of state. And that is why we go to food, because food changes our physiological state. We are now doing something else physically than we were doing when we were feeling those emotions. For example, a big one for me has always been if I'm working on something intense at the computer, I have to do a lot of thought, thinking around it. It takes a lot of mind work, brain power. My energy is being drained by that. And now I want to get up from the desk and go to the kitchen. It would be better for me to get up from the desk and do some jumping jacks or stretch or take a walk. Do something else to change the state of my body. It does not have to be food. So here's the tip for if it is head hunger. If it is not a physical need for nourishment, which you would experience from those sensations in your body, in your stomach. If it's head hunger, get busy. Use your hands and your feet for something other than eating. Like I just said, get up, take a walk, do some jumping jacks, jump in place, hit the gym, go for a walk or a stretch or a foam roll, play with your kids or your pets. Change the task. Maybe the task is stressing you out. Maybe you need to focus on a different task. Take a break, play a little game on your phone, look at kitten videos. That's my little stress reliever. I also like to go sit on the balcony and take in the sun. So do something else to change your state, but don't just sit there thinking about food. The other thing that I usually encourage when it comes to emotional hunger, identify what your true need is in the moment and fill it with something that's not food. Usually what I find with clients that the need that they're having when they think they're hungry or that they need food is that they actually need rest. A lot of them just have not given themselves a chance to sit down and breathe for 2 minutes in the day. They need relaxation. Hey, mothers, do you need to go to the bathroom and lock the door to keep your kids out? Because you haven't had a thought, your own thought all day in your head. You haven't been able to even think. So usually it's for one of two things. The change of state is either a need for rest or relaxation, something to calm you down, or the opposite, stimulation. You're bored, you're tired, and you actually need to get moving. You need stimulation. You need to put on a funny video. You need to get up and move. So identify for you what that is. Maybe you need some fun. Maybe you need a laugh. Maybe you need a hug. What is it that I actually need right now? There's a need that my body has, but it does not need to be food. It does not need to be filled with food. All right. Now that I've rambled for 30 minutes about mindset, because I'm always going to start with the mental stuff. Let's get into this list of hacks. So here's all the hacks. So here you go, Elizabeth. This is for you because Elizabeth, she shared, she just is up way too many hours in the day, way too many hours. She said, part of my problem is that I start my day at 3 a.m. and some don't end until 10 p.m. So that is a lot of hours to be awake. Your body is asking you for energy and nutrition, and that makes sense. Elizabeth is also not in a cut right now. So we don't want you to be starving. So I would say in those cases, I think, Elizabeth, you're going to find some great hacks here. But overall, right now, as I've shared with you, I want you eating, and I just want you eating nutrient-dense whole foods. And then I will have some tips here that will help you as well to get through those long days and not just go ham over consuming, but eat enough that you're giving your body what it needs. So tip number one, and I should number these because I have so many of them here and they're just bullet pointed. So let's number these so I can keep track. Let's see. Numbered list. There we go. No, not alphabetized, numbered. Okay, Google Sheets is being funny with me. There we go. Okay. There we go. All right. So number one is something I already shared. Don't cut too aggressively. So this goes back to the track what you're doing and understand what your body needs so that you're not just doing a way too aggressive, way too excessive cut, meaning you're trying to eat 500 calories, but your maintenance level is 1,500 calories. And so now you're in a 1,000 calorie deficit. That's too much too soon. And yeah, you're going to be starving because you're starving yourself. So don't cut too aggressively. And along with that, do not skimp on protein. Another big thing I see in the interwebs elsewhere outside of our community is people afraid of eating protein on keto because protein will kick me out of ketosis. Because gluconeogenesis, it doesn't work that way. It's not supply driven, it's demand driven. If the body needs glucose for the brain, because it can't find any, then it will turn to gluconeogenesis. That's happening in the background, and it's not just because you ate too much protein in one meal. It doesn't work that way. So don't be afraid of protein. We need the protein to build our muscle, maintain our muscle, our bone structure. Oh my gosh, so many things in the body. But also, it's very, very good for satiety. It helps keep us satiated. So we are not trying to eat all the things. So don't skimp on protein. Keep your protein nice and high. Do not cut too aggressively. Number two, stay hydrated, my friends. Drink more water. Drink more electrolytes with your water. Two big things is we are either not hydrated enough, we're not even drinking close to enough water, besides coffee, ladies, pure water. But also electrolytes are very key for all the functions in our body. They are messengers, basically. They are controlling the signals. So if you are feeling hunger signals, very, very common. And so many people have no idea that this is connected, but electrolytes can actually help reduce your hunger because you will function better. Your signals will function better. So hydrate with electrolytes. Does not have to be an expensive electrolyte powder. If it is, I have many that I enjoy that I also have codes for. So you can check the description box after the live, and I always put all my codes down under there in my links so you can get your discounts on Redmond's Relight, on Element, on Salty, and I have some new favorites that I may be sharing very soon. I've just been giving them a trial run. So my other little tip there is sparkling water. That is the other, this is really one of my like pro tips because when I'm really hungry, I usually do not like anything carbonated because I feel so full and my stomach is like, bleh. So I don't like to do sodas or any kind of sparkling beverages. But when I'm on a cut, I love my sparkling water. And I have grown to really enjoy the flavored sparkling waters. So those bubbles will fill you up. So that's another great little tip. And I like to do the ones that have no sweeteners in them whatsoever. If you struggle with cravings, don't do the ones with the sweeteners. There are plenty of them out there that are just water and flavoring. And for my carnivore purists, you can just get sparkling mineral water without the flavoring. It's also going to do the same thing. All those bubbles fill you up. All right. If it is early in the day, use some of your budgeted macros. Think of your macros like a budget, and each meal is an expense or purchase. Use some of your budgeted macros from dinner or lunch if it's morning or anytime later in the day. Use those earlier in the day. And I know you're afraid that you're going to be really hungry later, but sometimes that's not the case. You eat more earlier and you won't be hungrier later. You avoid eating earlier and you're guaranteed to be hungry later. So the other thing you can do is adjust the plan on the fly. So you could either take some of those budgeted macros from dinner and literally eat some of the meal that you prepped for dinner. If you have a meal prep, you can eat some of that as a snack or as a meal earlier in the day. Or you can do, this is something I did yesterday, you can adjust the plan on the fly. I planned to have 2 meals. I like to usually do 2 large meals a day and then maybe a snack and my coffee in the morning. But so yesterday I planned to have 2 large meals and my coffee. And instead, I was much hungrier early in the day. And I basically had planned to have one of my highest volume meals for that dinner. And it was, I just posted it on my Instagram yesterday. Probably be posting it again. It is my burger. I do like a 8 pound. I don't eat 8 pounds of meat in a day. 8 ounces, so half a pound burger on 2 egg life wraps, and then I put them in half. I'll show you. Just took a picture of it tonight, actually, again. Here's the one I posted yesterday. Glare. But it looks like little quesadillas, but there's a half a burger in each of those little egg life wraps folded in half with some pickles and some special sauce. And my special sauce is just the meat drippings from the burger that I cook in the pan, and then mayo and mustard. So 2 egg life wraps, half pound of ground beef. I do half of a halal 85-15 and half Wagyu because the Wagyu is so fatty. And then the mayo and the mustard. That together, that is a lot. I don't even know how many calories and macros, but it's the bulk for the day. So instead of doing that the other day, I was hungry for lunch, and I was, for some odd reason, craving mackerel. Now, I love mackerel, but it's not the kind of thing I'm going to crave as a craving that's not real hunger. So it truly was real hunger. I'd been running around doing a bunch of errands after breakfast. And so when I got back, it was hours later, and I was like, I need to eat now. And I wanted to eat a can of mackerel. So I just pulled out the can of mackerel. I plugged that in. I rearranged the meal, and I swapped that burger for lunch. I had mackerel, olives, and pickles, which is going to be another little tip in a moment. And then I swapped the burger for just a beef bowl. And it was the same. I believe I still had 8 ounces. So I still had half a pound of beef, but I had it in a bowl by itself without the 2 egg life wraps, without the sauce, which cut down another at least 10 grams of protein in those egg life wraps, and then at least probably 15 grams of fat in the sauce. So that significantly cut down my dinner so that I would be able to fit in the lunch. And I just had to make a simple swap. So do not be afraid to mix and match and move things around as needed if you have to do that on the fly. Just plug it in advance so you don't end up screwing up your macros for the day. All right, on to tip number 4. Eat your macros. Don't drink them. Water and electrolytes has 0 calories and 0 macros. If you're drinking 4 coffees a day with 4 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, and you're wondering why you're blowing your macros, liquid calories are not satiating. They don't go through the same digestive processes as whole foods. So, whenever possible, save that budget, that macro budget, for real whole foods. Chew and eat your food. Your satiety signals will be stronger and they will last longer when you're consuming food. The same goes for protein shake. Yes, a protein shake has protein and it has calories and it has, macros. And if you're adding fat to that, it also has fat. But a meal replacement shake is not going to satisfy you the same way a meal would. If you need a shake because you're crazy on the go and you can't possibly eat real food, by all means. But if you notice that you're getting way too hungry, you may want to cook up some steak and put it in a baggie and bring that with you and eat that on the go rather than the shake. Because your body is going to drink that thing and then still want more food. Now, here's a little trick. I didn't even put this on the list. We're going to make this 4A. Take a protein shake, put it in a creamy container, turn it into ice cream, and now it's a food you can eat. Now, I'm being a little funny because it's still not a real whole food, natural nutrient-dense whole food, but it does change slightly the way your body is perceiving that consumption because now it's in a more solid form. So if I'm making protein pancakes versus drinking a shake, that's going to be different to my body because I'm chewing. I'm consuming that as a meal. The protein ice cream is denser, thicker. It actually makes more of it than if I was drinking the shake. It would be about half the size. Y'all ever notice that if you're making protein creamies? They like double in size. So that is a tip. That'll go along with the volume later when I'm talking about volume. So you can do these little tricks to create more volume in your food. And then that changes the satiety signals as well. So simple number 5, eat slowly. If you're shoveling your food in, you're going to get hungry again in another couple of hours. The slower you eat, think about it like this. The slower you eat, the longer it's going to last, and the longer it's also going to last after the meal. The satiety is going to last. So slow down the meal itself. Give your body a chance to process that it's eating, that it is consuming, that it's receiving nutrients so that your satiety signals and your fullness cues can kick in. Also, ideally, eat undistracted. You ever sit down with a meal you're super excited to eat, you're eating it while you're working, and then next thing you know, you look down and it's gone? And you're like sad because you didn't even really get to enjoy that delicious meal? I have a rule these days. Very rarely do I work while eating anymore. If I can help it, if I'm not back to back with calls and I don't have like this crazy packed schedule, I will always take a break and eat my meals separately. Because when my mind is distracted with work, it's like it doesn't even register that we're receiving the food. And then I want more afterwards. That's another big one I see all the time with people. They're eating fast, they're eating on the go, they're eating while working, eating while distracted, and then all of a sudden they could eat 2 or 3 times as much. Hello, people with remember the bags of chips for me, it used to be the chocolate covered power berries from Trader Joe's when I was first getting healthy, right? I thought those were healthy. And I would sit down to a movie or a TV show and just the whole bag would be gone, or the chocolate covered blueberries. I used to do those things, like pop them like crazy. So yeah, that's why, because like you're not even registering that you're even consuming anything. All right, here's the biggie. Number 6, adjust meal sizes and timing. As I mentioned to Ashley earlier, 2 large meals could go to 3 medium-sized meals or 4 small meals. You could do 2 large meals with 1 snack or with 2 snacks. So the first step here is to observe when your hunger tends to strike. So this is always a follow-up question I have to a client when they say, I'm getting so hungry, I'm so much more hungry lately. When are you noticing the hunger? When does it strike? When does it kick in the most? You will discover patterns there. I've had clients where it always happened when they would come home from work and it had been so many hours from lunch. They get home from work and now they have to do their workout, but they're starving. And that used to happen to me when I worked in an office. I would work a little bit late and then all of a sudden, how am I going to go do a workout when I am starving? So just by eating a smaller lunch and saving some of the macros she'd planned for dinner or she planned for lunch and having a little pre-workout snack before she left the office, she would get home and be able to train without being starving and then still have food left over that she can eat after the training session. And for some of you, you might discover, if you're training late in the evening, and then it gets really close to your bedtime before that last meal, and you're like, how am I going to time things? So this is where it gets really key. Identify your schedule and those holes in the schedule and where the opportunities are to eat and what would be ideal for you. I've recommended before for people in that situation to have all their meals earlier in the day before their training, and then just save a little bit of protein and have a protein shake after their training session, just to give them something after training so they're not, having this major stimulus and then no food all overnight. But it gives them a little something, but it's not something heavy sitting on their stomach right before bed. So look at your schedule, look at when you get hungry, look at what is going to work best for you, and adjust your meals accordingly. And this will change. This can change over time. During one prep for me, I may start out doing one thing and then completely switch it by the time I'm getting closer to stage. Typically for me, what I find is the closer I get to stage, the smaller my meals need to be because my body just can't handle large meals like it could at the beginning of my prep when I had a lot more calories and I was in maintenance mode. So while in maintenance, I usually live with 2 large meals and then 1 or 2 little snacks. During a prep, I might start switching to, and I'm about 6 weeks, I'm in my 6th week of my cut now. Probably another week or 2, I'll start going regularly to a 3 meal a day, and the meals will be more moderate size. And then I'll probably move even into smaller meals after that. The week of my show, I'm usually doing a little bit of food, waiting to see what my body says, a little bit more food in like these small increments, working into the show. So, all right, tip number 7. Switch up your meals, rotate your foods, change the type of meat, the protein source, or combine protein sources in a meal. Steak and shrimp, steak and chicken, chicken and shrimp. I have done ground Wagyu with whitefish because there's no fat in whitefish and the Wagyu has all the fat. And then I don't have to use an exogenous fat. It just makes it more fun. There's more volume. You kind of look forward to it more. You can also add volume with more veggies if you tolerate veggies well. For those of you who eat fruit, you can add that to things. So these little things, because veggies and fruit don't have a lot of calories, so you're not now way over consuming. Now be careful about binging on veggies. I have been there. Early on in my competition preps, I would make like a pound of green beans in the air. We didn't have air fryers back then. In the broiler. So I'd make them like little chips, and then I would just crunch, crunch, crunch on these green bean chips. Can you imagine what that did to my gut? Oh my God, my stomach would be out to here. So be careful with the veggies. You don't want to go crazy on this. I also used to do massive raw salads with a ton of ingredients in them. And while that is a lot of volume, you could experience some gut troubles from the raw veg. It is hard to digest. So if you are going to do something like that, I would do a really good clean dressing or make your own dressing with vinegar. Help break that cellulose down so your body can handle it a little bit better, or even marinate it. When I was a kale eater, I used to make my kale salads the day before and put the dressing on so it would actually marinate the leaves, kind of cook them a little bit. So careful with the raw veg, but adding volume to your meals. As I mentioned earlier, a little trick is to take a protein shake and add more volume by turning it into a protein ice cream or making other foods or snacks with your protein rather than having it in a shake. This is something that I do pretty much all the time. This is the way that I make my diet sustainable for me for life. It stays enjoyable. I get to have little sweet treats every day if I want it. Just today, here's another one I did today. I haven't posted this anywhere yet, but I'm going to be sharing it eventually. One of my favorite things. This is a cinnamon egg life wrap with yogurt on top, and I use coconut yogurt, and I froze it. Put it in my freezer. It's like frozen yogurt, and then it snaps into pieces like that. And it is so tasty. I just added a little bit of stevia. What else did I have? Cinnamon, stevia, and I still have some ballistic keto MCT powder in different flavors. So I added a couple grams of the salted caramel. So the yogurt tasted like a cinnamon caramel frozen yogurt. It was really good. So that was just another little trick. Usually I'll put a little bit of protein powder in there, which thickens it up even more, the yogurt topping. I made a chocolate one the other night. I don't know if I took a picture of it, but I make a chocolate one a lot with a little bit of cocoa powder, protein, chocolatey Quip protein powder, and yogurt, coconut yogurt for me, and spread that on an egg life wrap, cinnamon egg life wrap, and freeze it, and it is primo. You don't even have to freeze it. If you just want to like roll it up like a little crepe, you could do that. I mean, there's so many things you can do with protein powder to make little treats and snacks to tide you over that are mostly protein, that don't really take away from your macros. So that was a little extra tip, 7A, protein snacks. I should make that a whole separate number. Let's make that number 8, protein snacks. That's also a great way to manage cravings. If you are craving something sweet and you don't want to eat some crap packaged product, you can make your own protein snacks. And eventually, I will come out with my protein treat cookbook, Keto Bikini Kitchen, because I have about 1 million of them by now. All right. Y'all stay on me about that so I can actually write those down and share them. Okay. Number 9, switch up your macro breakdown per meal. Notice how you feel after a meal. Now, depending on where your carbs are, because we got everybody in here from low carb to keto to carnivore. But assess how you feel after a meal that is maybe higher fat versus lower fat, higher carb versus lower carb, higher protein versus lower protein, how you're combining your foods in a meal. Look at when you're tracking your food, look, are my meals pretty balanced? Are they higher in one macro than another? And what does that do to my hunger signals? Do I want to front load my fats early in the day? I usually like that technique because that is when you need that energy for the day. And then I taper down and do the lower fat meals later at night. But it might depend on the day too. If I'm going out to dinner with the family, maybe I save my fats for dinner because I want to get a ribeye or something. So see what works best for you in terms of when you have your various macros. One thing that's very common is that higher carbs earlier in the day can drive hunger and cravings, especially if they're not paired with proteins and fats to slow down that blood sugar response. So if you're having carbs, if you're having berries, for example, and you have half a cup of berries all by themselves early in the day and you're wondering why you're hungry, that might be why. You also might want to look, and I didn't put this in here, but you may want to look at sweeteners. Let's make this number 10. Yeah, there we go. That's number 10. Consider what you're consuming that has sweeteners in it, whether they are artificial or natural. We all react differently to sweeteners, and we all react differently to different types of sweeteners and different types of products with sweeteners. So if you're using sweeteners or products with sweeteners in them, consider how that might be playing into your hunger cues. I will tell you the ones that are the worst for me are sucralose and maltodextrin and dextrose. I do fine with stevia sweetened or monk fruit sweetened things. Other people not so much, but certain ones will definitely trigger hunger and cravings. Others will trigger gut problems like xylitol and erythritol and stuff like that. So consider your sweeteners. All right, number 11, and I have 16 on this list, so we're closing in. Number 11, try cooking your meats differently for different textures. One of the things I also help when ladies are not feeling hungry and they have all this higher protein macro that they're not used to eating. They're like, how do I get all this protein and I'm not hungry? If you're eating a lot of grilled steak, chicken, grilled foods that you have to cut and chew and break down, that is a different experience than if you're eating ground, stewed, slow cooked, shredded, pulled, like soupy, kind of very well broken down meats. So consider the things that are more broken down are easier and quicker to digest. So they'll go through the digestive process a little faster, and then you may find yourself hungrier again. So you can generally eat those in larger quantities without it causing as much fullness either. So if you're struggling to eat more protein, I'd say go in the direction of the stewed, slow cooked, well broken down meats and the ground meats. And if you are hungry and you are in a deficit and you're on a fat loss phase and you don't want to be, hungry again too soon, grilled steak, chicken, dense meats like that. If you're going for fish, go for like a mahi, like a thick, dense fish, or a salmon, a good thick piece of salmon, rather than flounder or cod that is just going to fall apart, flaky, light. You need to eat 2 pounds of it before you even notice that you've eaten anything. So look at the density of your meats and the way that you're cooking them, and that can help. All right, number 12, okay, this is really where we're getting into some true hacks. Low or no calorie snacks that can stave off hunger. The key here, the game changer, and this is what I actually did today, and I did it yesterday as well. Sour, bitter foods like pickles, olives. Olives have some fat, but we're talking like 1 gram and like 2 olives. Pickles, olives, sauerkraut, even just a shot of apple cider vinegar. Things with vinegar in them, like pickles, they will blunt that hunger for another good hour or so, or maybe even longer. So something I like to do when I am cooking my dinner and I'm hungry, I'll snack on pickles while I'm preparing the meal. Or I might just, like I said, the other day I was hungry for lunch, so I had that mackerel. I also had some pickles and olives with it. And that helped really satiate me for another 3 hours after that. So those sour, bitter tastes, You could also do that with a beverage. You could take an electrolyte powder that's super sour. Element tends to be more sour bitter than some of the other ones. The sweeter ones can cause more hunger and more cravings, so I would go with the more bitter ones. And you could throw a shot of apple cider vinegar in there, make it even more bitter. Add a little lemon or lime to your water, those kinds of things. And then another beverage trick, number 13, low or no calorie hot beverages. Of course, your coffee. Caffeine blunts hunger already, so caffeine will help with that. That's a major crutch that a lot of bikini competitors lean on, is lots of caffeine. It is in pre-workouts, it is in fat burners that athletes take. I don't use fat burners, but those who do, caffeine is always one of the ingredients. So coffee, caffeinated tea or herbal tea, or hot cocoa. You could make your own hot cocoa with a little cocoa powder and some chocolate protein powder. Equip is great for that because it's a beef isolate, and so it blends well into hot liquids. Or you could do like a collagen powder with a little bit of cocoa powder. If you have like a couple of grams, a little bit of fat to spare, I like to do a little nut pods creamer or coconut milk in there. And when my calories are getting lower, that's when I'll switch from a full fat canned coconut milk to the light canned coconut milk or the carton. And actually, I got to show this to y'all because I got really excited about it. Your girl is going to go broke, I swear. They get me. Califia Farms, my favorite coconut milk. They have a monk fruit sweetened coconut almond blend that used to be my favorite. It's a toasted coconut flavor. But I really want to cut back on how much almond stuff I'm consuming. I don't do a lot of almond stuff anymore, only my nut pods because I will not give up my nut pods. But I prefer just the coconut milk. And their regular coconut milk has all those added gums, right? The gellan gum, the guar gum, maybe locust bean gum. They have a bunch of stuff in it, stabilizers. This one, brand new, first time I saw it at my Sprouts, organic coconut milk, unsweetened, only 4 ingredients: water, coconut cream, coconut water from concentrate, and baking soda, which is interesting. Makes me want to go down a little rabbit hole, figure out what baking soda does. So it must stabilize it like those gums do, but it doesn't have any of the gums. And it doesn't have any almonds either. It was $7 freaking for this thing, y'all. Like twice as much as the other one, but I went for it because I had to give it a try, and I really enjoy it. So this is the kind of thing that I will go to if I've already gone from the full fat to the light coconut milk in the can. This has about half the fat of that. So that's what I do as I'm cutting back on what I put in my coffee, what I put in my protein, ice creams, those kinds of things. When I have more fats in my macros, then I go toward the higher fat stuff. And then I cut back on the beverages. But all that to say, so low or no calorie hot beverages are extremely soothing to our system. So when you're feeling, this one could be good for the stomach hunger or for the head hunger, the emotional hunger. There is nothing like, that coffee in the morning, the hot cocoa, the tea. It's like the ritual of drinking a hot beverage. So when you can have a hot beverage and not put a bunch of calories in it, that will get you through. It can get you through. That's a great thing to do, especially in the evening when you don't want to eat anymore. It's too close to bedtime. You don't want to be pounding a whole bunch of water, but you can make a small hot tea and sip that, and it's also going to put you to sleep. Like it has that soothing, sleepy effect. So that's number 13. Number 14, when you are absolutely ravenous, starving, this is true stomach hunger. I am growling. Eat more lean protein. It's not going to harm you. It's not going to harm your fat loss efforts. Don't do this as, this is number 14 on the list for a reason. You don't want to be, as soon as I think I might possibly be hungry, let me just eat a whole bunch of lean protein, because that could do a number on your digestive system. You may not be the happiest person after that. And it may not be necessary. So when I said, when you are truly starving, ravenous, allow yourself to eat more lean protein. It will have the least of a negative effect of anything else. Unlikely to have a negative effect on your progress. And if you find that's happening constantly, you may be too much of a deficit. You might need to go back to number 1 and make sure that you are not cutting too aggressively. So this is why people on PSMF struggle, because all they're eating is lean protein. If all you're eating is lean protein, you're probably in too much of a deficit. So, all right, number 15, cardio. Look at your activity level. How much activity are you doing in a day? What is your step count? Are you doing any cardio? If you are doing an hour or more of cardio a day, that is too much. I don't even do that at the end of a prep. So if you're doing long duration, steady state cardio, LISS, low intensity, steady state, meaning you're not sprinting, you are walking, jogging, swimming, riding a bike for like an hour at a time. And you're doing that 3, 4, 5 times a week. You might want to cut back on the cardio or switch it up, because that longer duration cardio is going to have more of an effect on your hunger. If you're doing that long duration, you can switch it up and trade your 1 hour of LISS for a 15-minute HIIT session. And it will have less of an impact on your hunger. It'll give you a whole lot more time back in your day. And it'll have a whole lot of other benefits. But basically, in general, don't be doing excessive cardio. Excessive cardio will drive that hunger up. So just like we don't want to be in an excessive deficit with cutting our food, we also don't want to drive an excessive deficit by doing too much cardio. So look at your activity level and pay attention to the cardio that you're doing. And then finally, number 16, sweet 16. And my heart goes out to my ladies in peri and postmenopause, because I know this is a battle for many of you, and my ladies with small children. Sleep. If you are not sleeping, you are going to be more hungry. Your body desperately needs that time to refresh, renew, recover, restore. Without it, your hunger signals are going to be dysregulated. It's likely that your cortisol is dysregulated, as we talked about earlier. Your nervous system is dysregulated. So you have got to prioritize sleep. If your sleep is screwed up consistently, make that a top priority before you prioritize training, cardio, dieting, anything else. Because literally all your efforts will be thwarted by the lack of sleep, quality sleep. So sleep is key. Do not neglect your sleep. And so many women do this. Just neglect the sleep, like I'll sleep when I'm dead. No. Especially our fragile bodies as we are going through perimenopause and menopause. We desperately need that recovery. So create a sleep routine. Stop that last meal 3 to 4 hours before bed. See sunlight in your eyes as early as possible in the morning. And even better, get outside and get moving while seeing the sunlight to set your circadian clock. Start eating earlier If you're not eating by 10 a.m., have that first meal by 10 a.m. so you can start setting up your ideal circadian rhythm and get your body back into balance. We have to treat our bodies like they are our partners because they're the only ones that have been with us from birth to natural death. Nobody else in our lives will have been with us that long. God willing. So, treat your body like your partner. Take care of her. Do not neglect her, and that includes do not neglect your sleep. All right, 16 fat loss hunger hacks. I hope that these have been helpful to you. I don't see any questions in the chat. So it's over an hour, so I will cut it off. And I will prepare for sleep for myself over here. All right, ladies. Let me know if you put these tips to good use. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear about next on next week's masterclass. I will be coming to you next week from the beautiful state of Georgia as I'm going to visit my mom for her birthday. So signing off for this week. Go make it a great week. Love y'all. See y'all next time. Bye.